I'm going to get started. I'm Erica Schisler. I work on the Adobe Character Animator team. How many people here use Character Animator today? Couple. And how many people have had a chance to see it? Few. Do you use Photoshop? All the hands. Illustrator. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to our panel. I know there's a ton of things going on today. It's Saturday, the biggest day of Comic-Con. So we're psyched that you're here with us, and we're going to show you a lot about Character Animator, as well as how a couple of animators are using it to create a short film. But before that, I do want to mention that we have some swag. My colleague and good friend Michelle right there has t-shirts and socks with Red Monster, who is our mascot for Character Animator. If you happen to be one of the people that feels brave to ask questions, we've got swag for you. So just see Michelle, and we're going to leave a lot of time for Q&A. We are going to get started with a quick demo. Since a lot of you hadn't had a chance to see Character Animator, we're going to start by just giving you a quick demo. What is this software? And my colleague Dan Ramirez is right here to give us that demo.
Hi, so I'm Dan. I'm going to show you a little bit what Character Animator does. And then I'm going to go very fast because our users, Seth and Pat, have done some really interesting stuff with it, and I think that's why you guys are all here. So we always start in Photoshop or Illustrator. That's where our characters are born. You start creating a layered document, and right here we've got a folder. It's just full of head parts, and it's named head. And because of the way you name it, the software does cool things like be able to control the head with your own head. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Inside the head there might be a group called mouth, and you can see we've got a bunch of different mouth shapes. And by just drawing the things once in Photoshop or Illustrator, you can then reuse them in Character Animator. So I'm going to switch back here to this application, and I'm going to open up a different scene with a guitar playing character and just show you how you can assemble an animation in this software. So, like I said, you can control a character with your face. So if I enable the face behavior, and here actually I'll show you some of the technology we're using. This is face tracking. So if I look around, it's tracking my pupils, my eyebrows can move up and down. So, in real time you can basically control a character by essentially what we call it is puppeting it. So in this case, you can see I'm turning the character's head. The bangs on this character were drawn, and you can see they're kind of flopping around. Doing this in something like, hand drawing every frame, or in After Effects, it's very tedious and time consuming, but we can do something super simple here. If I come in here on the head, and you can see that isolate the little bangs, we've just got these little buttons called dangles, and by saying I want the hair to dangle, the hair dangles. So, on with the show. I'm going to enable something we're calling the dragger. The dragger is the ability to use a multi-touch device or your mouse to control a character. So we've got a dragger in this guitar player's right hand. We're playing pole position, folks. So right here I'm recording the right arm, and we're just going to do a couple seconds of that. And I don't need to record that audio, so I'm going to turn that off. Now that I've recorded the right hand, I'm going to move on to the left hand. And while that's recording, I just grab the left hand, move it up and down. You can see that, much like the way you record music in a music program, we're actually recording an animation performance. So the next thing, now that I've got both hands working, I'm going to turn on the face behavior so I can get some nice, swing to the music. And then I'm going to record a triggers behavior. So this character, they had drawn two different hand shapes just to emulate different guitar positions, and I'm controlling those with the keyboard. So now I'm going to record the face and the keyboard one more time. And actually, I still had the dragger recorded, so that's why the left hand wasn't moving. But now, if I hit play, you can actually see all the animation I had done is playing back right now. So you can see just how quick you can make an animation. But that's the nuts and bolts of making an animation. I don't draw. We also have a super secret project we're calling Project Puppetron that is in beta right now, and that
Not
allows
really a
you to
secret
create a puppet.
anymore.
What's that?
Not really a secret anymore.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm blowing the secret. So this has been really fun. I've been demoing at the booth. So I'm going to start a capture here, and there's my face, and I'm going to start the process. So I'm going to make a neutral expression. Now I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to smile, frown, look surprised, and now we're going to go through capturing the visemes. Those are the pictures of the mouse shapes that drive our automatic lip sync, which Seth will be showing you. A, D, E, F, L, M, O, R, S, U. So right now it took a picture of my face doing a bunch of different shapes. In animation, when a character makes, is speaking and they make the ooh sound, well, you have to show a mouth that makes like a little circle. Or if they're making the e sound, you do have kind of a wide, stretched out mouth. This is automatically doing that by taking pictures of your face. So if I wanted a jib-jab style puppet, I'm done. Like, I just export this. But we do something really fun where you can stylize your image based on another source of like inspirational image. So we've got pieces of art here where, this one looks really good. Again, I said I can't draw, but now it looks like I've done a self-portrait in an oil painting style. We also have a kind of a feature exaggeration slider, so you can make things look a little bit less like you. So I think that looks very handsome. And if I go on the other side, so it's really fun. Like, we got these sliders to enable like different styles. So you can see that looks pretty great. I'm gonna flip through some of these other styles. You can see this one's a little hand sketched.
I think there's a drawing in there that Seth did.
I know, I'm gonna end on that
All right.
one. And I have to show the Adobe Chewbacca Fire 2000, which is pretty great. So I just took a picture of a Chewbacca statue and then another actual practical giant puppet with real fur. This I took a picture of a dollar bill. So it can be used for so many things. I'm going to end up on one that our artist Seth here has drawn, and this is pretty great. I can't draw, but I can now trick people into thinking that I've done a self-sketch. And the cool thing is then, in the application, I can control it, and since I close my eyes, it means that when I blink, there's going to be a hand-drawn line pencil sketch of me blinking. If I look around, my eyeballs will move behind my eye sockets. And then when I speak, it's going to show all of the different mouth shapes. So I could have this head posted onto any body that I drew myself, or we supply a bunch of template puppets, and you can take this head and put it onto one of those template puppets. Since I want to get to everyone else, I'm just going to turn the head position strength down. And you can see if I move my eyebrows up and down, that's moving. And if I turn on the microphone, then now you can see that the automatic lip sync is working. So it's a way you can make a puppet without having to draw anything.
So I want to introduce all of you to Pat Moriarty, and he's going to tell us about his amazing and quite illustrious career in comic illustration and animation, showing you some of his art, and then the evolution of this project that Pat and Seth have been working on to turn this art into a short animated film using Adobe Character Animator.
Hey, you guys. So yeah, this is my website, just patmoriarty.com. I just kind of want to give you an idea of like what my style is usually like. I'm almost like a blend between Mad Magazine and underground comics, I guess. And so I specialize in print. And so this is why this character animator program was so interesting to me, because I was like, I could take just how like I normally draw and animate with it. This is my comics from the 90s that I did for Fantagraphics books. And so I started off doing comic book art. And then more recently, I've been contributing to Mineshaft magazine, which is kind of a modern underground comic. So, I just kind of wanted to give you a taste of what I normally draw like. This is the cover to the now deceased Dennis P. Eichhorn's Extra Good Stuff. And it's kind of like a the flip side, or similar to American Splendor, with different artists for every story. So I'm used to collaborating with different writers. And I've also done a lot of stuff for Nickelodeon magazine when that was in print. And currently I've been doing stuff for Highlights magazine. This is a kid's game, kid's puzzle. And so this is kind of what my drawing style is like. Do a lot of rock posters, and I do a lot of album covers. This one was Endino's Earthworm. Jack Endino recorded Nirvana's first album, and this is his band. I live in the Seattle area. And so he was hired to record this band in Buenos Aires, Argentina, called Banda de la Muerte, and it was only because they saw this t-shirt that he was wearing when he was down there recording them, and they said, we want that guy to do our cover. So I ended up doing this cover for them, and they wanted to they wanted me to draw a guy getting hit with a 1980s Sony Walkman, and I was like, why? And they were like, between the years 88 and 94 were the years that they were listening to grunge, and their album was like a Valentine to the grunge scene. And so I was like, okay. But then the album got 4 stars in Rolling Stone in South America, and I can't read Spanish, but I can see my name on the second line there. And so I was like, yes. And I started getting calls from media companies in South America. And so like one job leads to another. There's one sketch for a poster that I did for Club de la Muerte, Club of Death in South America. And so like I kind of have this chain reaction of one job leads to the next. The Nick Moss Band is a blues band. This got number 3 on the charts in the United States for blues last year. And Mad Trucker Gone Mad is a punk rock mixed with trucker music from Madison, Wisconsin. And this is the biggest album cover I've done, where this band from Portland called Hey Lover wanted me to create one of those kinds of, those roadside attractions where you can put your head through the hole and get your picture taken with a cartoon body. The name of their album was Sinking Ships, so I decided to make this Kraken strangling the band. So that's what I'm painting there. And then here's the actual cover where the band stuck their heads through and they photographed it, and then that became their album cover. And then this is the back of the album cover, because they wanted to make sure that you knew that it wasn't photoshopped, that they actually, went through with that. So, and then that's the inside of it for a gatefold record sleeve. It was in Astoria, Oregon is where I painted that thing. And then something I'm doing more recently is, this is for a play called Lizard Boy. This isn't colored yet because it's still in the works right now. So it kind of maybe catches you up to the kind of stuff that I do. And, and this is 4 frames from an animation that I did for a documentary about Wildman Fisher called De-Railroaded. And this was actually a flash animation, and that was really probably the most knowledgeable I have been about animation up until this point when I started working with Seth on this project we were working on. The thing we're doing with Character Animator is called The Realm Beyond Reason, and that's the script there and the storyboards, and I insisted on drawing everything on paper because that's what I'm the most comfortable with, but also because I wanted to kind of experiment and test Character Animator. I wanted to see how close to hand-drawn artwork that I could make this look, with lots of detail and stuff that you don't normally see in animation. So I draw everything at home in my studio. That's my place where I work. And I drew like a gigantic stack of pen and ink drawings. I use a Hunt 102 nib and I dip it in the ink just like Thomas Nast and all the old time cartoonists, and that's the kind of look I was going for. And I probably did a graphic novel's worth of artwork for an 8-minute cartoon, like a big stack of these drawings. I probably even added stages to this that probably didn't need to be there because of my insistence of drawing it on paper. But the results of it is what really I'm excited about. I drew just about, I drew actually all the storyboard art and every friggin' picture for this whole thing. This is basically a two-man operation. I storyboarded and drew everything, and then Seth did the software part of it with Character Animator. We wanted trees blowing in the wind for the intro scene, so I drew each tree individually as an illustration on Bristol paper, just like a cartoonist would do when they were doing a comic book. The opening scene, I drew the pizza place, I drew the sky, the background trees, the foreground that the building is sitting on and everything, all on paper. I had to do a door opening, so I drew the doors in different positions and close-ups of it for different scenes. And then, because I knew that a little bit about how this was going to work, I drew the heads of all the characters in, front, three-quarter view, profile, back three-quarter view, and even from behind, so that they could fit on that body. And then when you do a live cartoon like he was just demonstrating, the cartoon character would move accordingly. And this is another character, and I just literally used a light table and just drew all the body parts on separate pieces so that they could be overlaid in layers. Here's one of the other characters. And I just used the same illustration technique that I always use for print. And I actually drew all the mouths. This is just 3 pieces of paper, and I wanted to, for every position of the head, I had to draw all of the mouths. So the profile mouths, the three-quarter view mouths, the head-on mouths, so that as the character's talking and their head turns as they're talking, the lips continue to work and it still works. So you can fine-tune the acting at the end of the cartoon, bring the actors in and have them fix their lines or their facial expressions. Same thing with that one. And there's one of the head-on views. This guy's terrified in this scene, so that's why he looks that way. And for walking cycles, which was really interesting for me, I just had to draw one drawing. And I was amazed at how it looks like maybe I did multiple drawings for this when I just did one. So that I still drew a lot of pictures, but for every motion, I just had to draw one drawing. This is kind of how I started to figure it out. I've got this walking Sasquatch. I was looking at the Patterson film from the 60s, and I was trying to make sure that the body language was right. And so I've got that stick figure there. And then also, because I knew it would be on layers, I wanted to draw the torso separate from the limbs. And so this is kind of how I first started to do it when I was experimenting with trying to figure out how to make this work. Here's one of the other Sasquatches, and just the preparatory sketch. And their heads turn, so I have the different heads to fit on top there. And then this is a phone answering scene. This guy's staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring, and then when it finally rings, he answers it. So these are just the only pieces that were necessary to make it happen. And then this is a pizza handoff. The pizza guy gives him the pizza box, and it slides right off his hands. Turning up the radio, all I had to do is draw the radio and the hand that's turning up the radio, and Character Animator did all the rest of it. This is about the closest thing to actual hand-drawn animation for the whole cartoon is this screaming scene where I actually drew the head 6 times or whatever, 6 or 7 times. That's the only time I ever drew multiple drawings. Everything else was just one drawing. And then the Squatches make sock puppets out of the victims. I'm giving away the ending, but these were puppets too. And then there's all the different mouth positions that I drew that fit over that drawing at the top. And then that little head down there at the bottom, is when he first starts to make a puppet out of it. There's a kind of a close-up of the Sasquatch and some of the mouths and stuff that those are all individual lines and stuff that you probably normally wouldn't be encouraged to do in animation because it would be really hard to animate all those lines. And they even cross-hatched the inside of his mouth. And then, the torso separate from the head, separate from the arms. This is the scene where he takes the head that's going to be in his hand there, and then he like rams his hand into it and starts using it like a puppet. So like this head here, that one at the bottom, is the one that goes in his hand there at the bottom. And so then they animated the rest of it after I just gave them these few pieces. And then this is a gradual smile. The Sasquatch sticks his head in from the side of the screen, and then he makes a small smile that gets larger. So I just drew the separate faces. And then after that, I scanned all the artwork into Photoshop and cleaned them up a little bit and put them in layers and added all the mouths on separate layers and everything. So after everything is plugged in, then that's when you can do a live cartoon, when all those pieces are in place. So that's where we're at with it now. And so I pretty much got all the artwork drawn, and now my friend Seth, who I teach at the Seattle Art Institute, and I met Seth there. We both taught in the animation department. And I told him about this project I was working on with this comedy writer from Dublin, Garrett Shanley. And we needed an animator. And I showed the storyboard and the script to Seth and some of the drawings, and he was like, let's finish this. And then that's when the character animator agenda got put into the thing. And so I guess I'll hand it off to Seth and let him talk a little bit about what he did with my artwork. But I just wanted to get across that this is all hand-drawn artwork on paper, just like comic book artists do. And I'm still in the mode of thinking of myself as a comic book artist. And so it's interesting to see how it progressed from here after I made these pieces. It's kind of like making paper doll pieces that were, move around later. So I guess right now I'll introduce Seth Zeichner, my partner in crime.
I love the idea that we have a character animator agenda. The agenda is to make you all animators. I also want to mention Seth is an amazing artist. Some of his work you saw in Project Puppetron. He's a graphic designer and an animator, and sort of notable for having worked on Blue's Clues as well, and done lots of other things. And he's a teacher and a filmmaker.
Hi, everybody. My name is Seth, and she's right. I did work on Blue's Clues. I co-designed Blue a long time ago, and I've been working on animation and cartooning for a long time, sort of as an independent animator when I left New York. And Pat is semi-right. When I first saw his artwork for this piece, when I first saw it, before Character came out, I said, yeah, I don't know if we can make that work without thousands and thousands of drawings.
Too many lines.
And it was just a little too difficult for typical animation. And so when Character first came out, I took one of his pieces of art and threw it in there just to see what the effect would be, how it would look. And when we saw it, we were pretty impressed. And that is just one drawing of the guy, a still drawing, and he breathes and he looks around, and we thought, maybe this will work. The line work looked pretty good, and this is just a really rough test here. And we liked it, and we decided we would start doing it. Now, when we first started, Character was fairly rough at the time, and so we've been building this over time with the program. As the program grows, the film gets better and better. We've been adding to it as as they put a new tool in the software, we come up with an idea. So I'm going to show a little trailer here of sort of what we have going on, and then I'll show how it works.
Let me in, Brad. They're coming. Who's coming? Awful, horrible things.
irregular substances, kid. Chef Grimaldi! Chef Grimaldi! A monster! Outside! An awful monster!
So, yeah, some of that is very early, and you'll see we've fixed it. And the great thing about working with Adobe has been that as we've been fixing it, as they've been making the program better, we've been able to fix the animation and make it better. And they've been making tools for us, which has been really, really fun. This is one of the main characters, Chef Grimaldi, and I just wanted to show you some of the lip sync features in character, which I find amazing. It used to be, when we did animation, lip sync would take up a ton of the budget and time because it was very time intensive, labor intensive, and it's a little, it's a very subjective art. And so here I have a voice track.
I better lock up so he doesn't come in.
There we go.
Well,
So-
this reminds me, whose voice is that?
Oh, that's John Keister's voice, who is, he's pretty well known in the Seattle area. I don't know how well known he is outside of that. He was in a show called Almost Live a long time ago, which is pretty much a Seattle, mainline show. He's a great actor, and he did great voices. He nailed all these voices. So he does a couple voices in there. We only have two voice actors, John Keister and John Paulson. John Paulson is also pretty well known. All right, so now what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to record some head turns and then show you how the lip sync works. So let me get the camera on here.
Yeah, it sounds like the local drunk. I better lock up so he doesn't come in.
Now you might have noticed he's already blinking in there because we have an automatic blink going on. And what I'm going to do, he's responding to my voice, what I'm going to do is the automatic lip sync, which is compute lip sync from audio. Let me make sure I got
So
the
this
right-
means anybody could use a recording that they've got or that they've made and just do compute lip sync, or you could do it live, you could act it out.
Yeah, we've
So
got
there-
recorded voices, but later on, we'll probably get the actors to come in, and then they can watch the cartoon and go, look, let me do another take on that. Usually can't do that in cartoons because the soundtrack ends up being like written in stone, and then you put the art with that. But this is like a strange thing where you can fine-tune the audio after the cartoon and then bring the actors in at the 11th hour and change them a little bit if you need to.
So this is how the lip sync looked. And the thing I love about it is that he's turning his head and talking, and the mouths figure it out. If I went back in and redid the heads, the mouths would still be there. That lip sync data is in there. And whatever the actor or I do with the head will be translated into that lip sync. And so as long as you have mouths for every view, he can look up, he can look down, he can do whatever you've added in there. It's really a pretty fun thing. He is, you can see, I don't know if you can tell, his little curl up there has one of those dangles on it and sort of bounces around a little bit. The next thing that I thought was really fun that is difficult to do in animation is walk cycles. This is, again, just a single drawing that we make walk. And you notice, so over here in the project, or the properties window, there's a whole setting for walk, and we've got all sorts of different stuff. They have built-in styles that you can select, right? This is a pretty standard walk. We can change it to a slump, right? We can change it to a strut, where you can really get his groove on. But staying within walk, we can slow him down, make him look like he's walking in slow motion, kind of like in that Patterson film. I can make him look at the camera just like in the Patterson film, right? I can speed him up again. I can change his arm swing. I can really make his arms crazy, right? And so you can basically use one character and create thousands of different walks. We've got, this is pretty fun here. The elbow bend allows you to change the way he holds his arms, right? So you can get a ton of character, no pun intended, out of this.
Yeah, we have 3 Sasquatches in this cartoon, so we can give them each their own gait, their own walking style, to give them each individual personalities just by the way they walk.
This is one of my favorite pieces here, is where if you look at his toes, right, this is the way when they first made the toe, the walk cycle, the toes didn't move, and so the feet look kind of wooden. But now we have a toe bend feature that allow the toes to bend, which gives you a lot more personality. So if you look at his right wrist, I can twist it, right? So I can change it on the fly as it's going. I could record that if I want, right? To make him hold like a handbag or something, or to do, to just
Female Squatch.
to be all funky. In the rig mode, basically, it's one body, and you go in and I've broken it up into layers and put it on, but it started out as one drawing, and we broke it up and
Yeah, it's that same drawing that I showed earlier.
you can see these tags. When I tag it left elbow, here is the model of the rig, right? And it
So
shows
that's all
the
he had
left
to do.
elbow, and then it's got the right elbow, which is over on this arm, right? And you've got the legs. Now, Pat did draw them kind of bent, but he did not have to.
Yeah, I had to learn how to do this. Like, I was trying to put body language into the cartoon characters before they were drawn, and then I realized that it's better to just draw them straight and let the program deal with the body language. So that was a learning thing for me.
And this is one of my favorite scenes here, and you can see this is just a single drawing. He doesn't turn his head, but it's really only like a 2 or 3 second shot. It's kind of excessive, but
If we do
very
want him
funny.
to
He's
turn
got-
his head, I'll draw more drawings for it.
what we really wanted to do was to make them appear alive and to become more stressed out as the story goes on. So you can, if you look down at his neck, you can kind of see that he's breathing heavily, he's sweating. I've always been a fan of, animated or cartoon comicania, they call it. Things like ploods and sweat beads and heat rays and.
Yeah, that's all comic book stuff too.
Yeah, and so we're trying to make this look as much like a comic that moves as we can. Not really a motion comic, but as if a comic actually came to life.
Like an animated underground comic was kind of like what I was trying to shoot for.
Let me in, Brad. They're coming.
It's my favorite line. That's a little loud, sorry.
You guys, I want to make one last announcement, though. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is in the Adobe booth here. They're demoing what they're doing, but they're also looking for animators. So if you are an aspiring animator, they are looking to hire some people. Check out their website or come by the booth. I've got some of these here if you want to become an animator. We have to go. The booth is 4313. It's near the Nickelodeon booth. There you go. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, you
to our
guys.
panelists.